Mom texted, "We're skipping your son's birthday, trying to save money." I said, "I understand." The next day I saw their livestream. Giant party, gifts everywhere, for my sister's kids. My boy said softly, "Guess they forgot me again." I just cut them off from payment. By 9 a.m. Dad was on my porch yelling. My son Mason was turning 10. A whole decade. He was so proud. He kept telling people, "I'm double digits now," like it was some secret club only older kids got into. I laughed every time because I remembered when he was barely up to my knee, chasing after bubbles in the backyard. Now he was all arms and legs and ideas. A 10-year-old boy who still loved dinosaurs and believed the best in people. Especially his family. We'd planned the party together for weeks. He drew the invites, I printed them. He wanted a dinosaur scavenger hunt, so my husband built little nests with fake eggs around the yard. There were mini volcano cupcakes, a pizza bar, and that gummy worm cake he wouldn't stop talking about. Everything had to be green, even the lemonade. The guest list was small but important. Friends from school, a few neighbors, my in-laws. And my side. Mom, Dad, my sister Lauren and her girls Ellie and Sadie. We sent out the invites early. My parents RSVP'd yes. Lauren sent a thumbs up and said the girls were excited. I didn't expect anything would go wrong. Neither did Mason. But as the minutes ticked by, every car that pulled up wasn't theirs. Mason kept glancing toward the street. Then he'd run back to his friends, pretending he wasn't looking. He asked me once, in the middle of decorating his cake table, if I thought Grandma was bringing her chocolate chip cookies like last year. I told him probably, but I already knew. The way they hadn't replied that morning. The silence. I felt it in my stomach. So I kept smiling. For him. For the kids. It wasn't until the last guest had arrived and we'd started cutting the cake that I accepted it. They weren't coming. No call. No excuse. Just silence. After the candles were blown out and the scavenger hunt was over, Mason sat down to open gifts. He thanked everyone just like we taught him. Then while folding up a gift bag he looked down at his lap and said so quietly I barely caught it, "Guess they forgot me again." That nearly broke me. When I got a moment alone I checked my phone. One text. From Mom. Sent at 9:12 a.m. hours before the party started. "We're skipping Mason's birthday this year. Trying to save money." No apology. No mention of a rain check. Nothing. I stared at it, not even sure what I was reading. The same woman I'd helped all year. Paying off their plumbing bill, fixing the back steps, sending over groceries when Dad was out of work. Now skipping her grandson's birthday like it was some optional event. I had responded earlier with "I understand" before I really thought it through. I didn't want to start anything on Mason's day. I thought maybe there was a reason. Something they didn't want to talk about yet. But then came the next morning. At 8:43 my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. Lauren was live. I tapped it, still half asleep, and there it was. Streamers, glitter, pink balloons everywhere. A full setup in Mom and Dad's backyard. 2 huge cakes. One with unicorns, the other shaped like a crown. Sadie was opening a new bike. Ellie got a tablet. Mom was passing out gift bags like it was Halloween. Dad was filming the whole thing like he was proud director of some family masterpiece. It was a birthday party. A huge one. For the girls. The same people who had no money to come 20 minutes to see Mason had thrown a full-on Pinterest-level bash the very next day. I didn't say anything at first. I just held out my phone and let my husband watch. He set his coffee down and said one thing. "That's it. We're done. No more bills. No more grocery runs. No more house repairs. If they couldn't show up for our son, they didn't get our support. Not anymore." We didn't make a scene. Just turned off the faucet they'd been drinking from all year. But they noticed fast. At exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, someone started pounding on our front door like they were trying to knock it off its hinges. It was Dad. And he was already yelling before I even opened it. Dad didn't even let the door finish opening. There he was, red-faced, voice already raised, asking what the hell was going on. Why the grocery money didn't show up like it normally did. Why I hadn't replied to Mom's texts. Why my husband suddenly thought it was okay to ignore his calls. He acted like we owed them answers. Like we were out of line for not sending cash this week. I didn't say a word at first. Just stood in the doorway with Mason upstairs, probably still asleep, and listened to my father shout like he was in charge of something. He called our behavior immature. Said we were blowing things out of proportion. That we were acting like the victims over a misunderstanding. Then he said he heard Mason's party was nice. Said that's good. At least the boy had something. That made my husband come to the door. He asked Dad why they lied. Why they told us they couldn't afford to drive over, couldn't even pick up a $5 gift. Then turned around and threw a full-on party with gifts spilling over the table. Why they didn't just say the truth, that Mason didn't matter as much. Dad rolled his eyes. Said it wasn't like that. Said, Those girls are just easier to celebrate, and Mason doesn't need all that stuff anyway, he's got you too. He meant it like a compliment. I felt sick. My husband told him the money train was done. That from now on they could call someone else for their lawn repairs, their bills, their prescriptions. We'd bent over backwards for them for years, and in return they couldn't drive 20 minutes to show up for a boy who adored them. Dad actually tried to guilt me then. Said, after everything we've done for you, Katie. Like I was the ungrateful one. Like I hadn't been the one holding this whole fake version of family together. That's when I finally spoke. I asked him calmly, did you forget Mason's birthday, or did you just not care? He didn't answer. Just stared at me like he expected me to cry or take it back. When I didn't, he backed down the steps, muttering something about regret, and drove off. I closed the door and didn't move for a long time. Later that day I found Mason in his room playing with a toy his uncle had given him. He looked up and asked if Grandma and Grandpa were mad at us now. I said no, they just needed some space. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. That night my husband and I sat at the kitchen table while the dishwasher hummed in the background. I told him I didn't know if I was overreacting. I'd always been the one trying to keep peace in the family. I just couldn't believe they would choose my sister's kids so openly, so shamelessly. He didn't get dramatic about it. He just looked at me and said, Katie, it's not even about what they did to you anymore. It's about what they're doing to him. And he was right. I was so used to taking the hit I hadn't realized it wasn't just hitting me anymore. Mason had always noticed the difference, but he was polite. Too polite. When the girls got surprise gifts and he got a shrug. When Ellie got a shout out on Facebook for winning second place in her art contest, and Mason's name wasn't even mentioned after he won the science fair. When Sadie sang one verse of Twinkle Twinkle, and they brought flowers, but Mason's school play came and went without a single text from them. He wasn't bitter, but he was getting quieter. And that scared me more than anything. So we stopped everything. We didn't announce it. We didn't argue or beg. Just stopped. The money, the favors, the driving around, the covering bills, the showing up when they didn't. They noticed fast. And then a few days later something unexpected happened. Lauren showed up at our house. No call. No warning. Just her minivan pulling up in the driveway. She got out with Ellie and Sadie both holding something, a wrapped box and a small card. They looked nervous. He did too. I opened the door and Lauren didn't smile. She didn't make a joke or act casual. He just said quietly, "Can I talk to you?" I opened the door and let them in without a word. Lauren looked different, tired in a way I hadn't seen before. Not physically exactly, but like she'd been carrying something around that was starting to crush her. Her girls were quiet, clinging to each side of her. Ellie had a wrapped box with a shiny green bow. Sadie held a small envelope. Neither of them looked me in the eye. I told them Mason was upstairs and offered coffee. Lauren said no, just that she needed a minute to talk. We sat in the living room while the girls wandered off to pet the dog, and for a few seconds no one said anything. Then Lauren took a breath and said, "I didn't come to Mason's party because I couldn't. I wanted to. I was ready to, but I couldn't. I waited." She looked down at her hands and said she'd been having chest pain for a couple of weeks. Tightness, shortness of breath. She went to urgent care. Then they sent her to the ER. More tests. They thought it might be her heart. She didn't tell anyone. Not mom, not dad, not me. Not even her husband at first. She said she sat in her car the morning of Mason's birthday with his gift in the passenger seat, dressed and ready to go. But she felt like she couldn't move. Couldn't get out. Couldn't face pretending everything was okay when she didn't know if it was. And then she missed it. She thought she could make it right the next day. She told the girls they'd drop the gift off after a quick stop at mom and dad's. They'd invited them for a little backyard gathering. Nothing big, or so they said. Then she got there. The pastel decorations were everywhere. A unicorn bounce house. Rows of wrapped gifts. A stacked dessert table. My parents had gone all out. She said it didn't feel like a surprise party. It felt planned. Coordinated. And not once had they told her they were skipping Mason's birthday to prepare for it. She confronted mom quietly, off to the side while the girls were playing. She asked why they hadn't come to Mason's. And mom told her word for word. Because he's a boy. Boys don't need that stuff. You know how Katie gets. She overdoes everything. That's when Lauren left. Told them she wasn't feeling well and didn't stay for the cake or the presents. She said she felt sick. Not from the pain in her chest, but from the way they talked about my son. Like he was an inconvenience. A checkbox they didn't want to tick. She looked at me then and said she should have told me earlier. That she'd been making excuses for them for too long. That she thought maybe things would change once the kids were older, but now she saw, they weren't going to change. They just didn't care about Mason the way they cared about her girls. Then she got up and called Mason down. He came slowly, unsure. When he saw Ellie and Sadie, he froze for half a second, then gave them a shy smile. Ellie handed him the gift. Sadie gave him the envelope. He opened the card first, hand-drawn with glitter, hearts, and a note that said, "To Mason, the best cousin in the world. We missed you. We love you." He didn't say much, just hugged them both tight. Then all three of them ran off to the playroom like none of the last week had happened. The sound of their laughter drifted through the hallway, soft and easy. Lauren and I stayed in the living room. She asked me if I wanted her to talk to Mom and Dad again. Not for a fight, just to make them understand. I told her I didn't know if they were capable of understanding. But I also told her I wasn't going to stop her. Later that night after they left, I found the gift box in Mason's room. Inside was a little wooden plaque with the words, "Best cousin ever," painted in green and purple. It looked like they'd worked on it for days. Mason was asleep, one arm over it like it was gold. That was the first night in a while that I felt something close to peace. But 2 days later Lauren called me. Her voice was low and flat when she said it. I talked to them. I wish I hadn't. Lauren called me the morning after that beautiful evening like something had cracked open. I could hear it in the first second. No small talk, no hesitation. I talked to them, she said. I shouldn't have, Katie. I really shouldn't have. She'd gone over there alone. Left the girls at home with her husband. She didn't tell anyone she was going. She just drove straight to our parents' house and walked in through the back door like we used to when we were kids. The house smelled like lemon polish and toast the way it always did, like nothing bad ever happened inside it. Mom was at the table folding laundry, drinking coffee like it was any other day. Dad was outside fiddling with the hose. Lauren told me she sat down and asked as plainly as she could, "Why didn't you come to Mason's birthday?" Mom didn't even blink. She just said because it wasn't a good time. You know how tight money's been. Lauren pushed just a little. That's not what you told Katie. And the party for the girls. That wasn't tight budgeted either. Then she asked the real question. Do you love Mason at all? Mom looked annoyed. Like Lauren was making something out of nothing. Then she said it. Flat. No emotion. Katie's always been dramatic. Mason's the same. He'll get over it. They always do. Lauren told me she stared at her for a full minute. Waiting for a smirk, a laugh, some kind of walk back. But there was nothing. Then Dad came in. She asked him point blank. Why do you treat them like they don't matter? And Dad, the man who used to carry me on his shoulders at the fair, who used to call me his strong girl, didn't deny it. He didn't lie. He just shrugged and said, Katie never made things easy growing up. She was different. You were more like us. Just natural. Like it was the weather. Like it wasn't a choice. Like it wasn't cruelty. Lauren said she stood up and told them she wouldn't bring the girls over anymore. Not until they owned what they did and apologized. Not just to me but to Mason. Mom shook her head. That's your choice, but you'll regret keeping them away from their grandparents. Lauren told me she just walked out. No shouting. No dramatics. She said she felt like she just closed the door on something heavy that had been sitting on her chest for years. When she finished telling me all this, I didn't cry. I didn't even feel hurt anymore. What I felt was final. They chose their side. And it wasn't ours. That night, after I tucked Mason into bed, I sat on the floor in the hallway and stared at nothing. I kept thinking about all the times I'd twisted myself into someone they might accept. The extra favors. The kind replies. The birthday invites year after year, knowing the odds. It was never about effort. It was about who they were willing to care about. The next morning there was a knock at the door. Not loud. Just 2 soft knocks. I expected a neighbor or a package. But when I opened it, no one was there. Just a small gift bag on the welcome mat. Blue and green stripes. Mason's favorite colors. Inside was a dinosaur toy. The exact one he had pointed at a few weeks before his birthday. The one I said no to because it was out of budget. No note. No card. No name. My husband checked the doorbell cam. It was Mom. She had parked 2 houses down, walked up the sidewalk without looking around, dropped the bag and left without a sound. No knock, no doorbell. No eye contact with the camera. She didn't come to say anything. Just left the toy like a payment. Like she thought she could buy silence. Or forgiveness. I didn't give it to Mason. I put it away in the back of my closet. Because it's not about a dinosaur toy. It's about the fact that she could drive to our door, hold that bag in her hands and still choose not to face him. Not to face me. She didn't bring herself. Just an item she thought might erase a wound she never acknowledged. And that's when it hit me. You can't fix a hollow relationship with a full gift bag. You can't backpedal from years of favoritism with one overpriced toy. She left that morning hoping I'd hand Mason the gift and forget everything else. Instead, I shut the door behind it. Lauren showed up after work, alone. She had her hair tied back and a tired look on her face, like someone who had spent all day trying to hold something heavy and was finally ready to set it down. She didn't even take her coat off. Just walked into my kitchen, leaned against the counter and said flat out, "They're never going to change." I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. But she told me anyway. She had gone back to talk to them. One last time. Not because she expected a miracle, but because she thought maybe, just maybe, if she laid it all out they'd see it for what it was. That this wasn't some emotional overreaction. That it was real damage. That they were losing something. She brought pictures from Mason's party thinking maybe it would get through to them. Mason in his party hat. Mason handing out cupcakes. Mason checking the driveway every half hour until his shoulders finally dropped. She even read them the text I got. The one-line message from Mom. She read them Mason's words. Guess they forgot me again. She told them about the gift I found on the porch. How it didn't make anything better. How it actually made it worse. She said she didn't accuse, didn't shout, didn't beg. He just asked, "Do you even realize what you've done?" And Mom's response was, "Katie's always been emotional. She's been like this since she was little. You know that. Mason's the same. It's not our fault they take everything so personally." Lauren pressed harder. "So what? You just don't like them? You don't love them?" Mom didn't answer right away. She just looked at Lauren and said, "We've always had a stronger bond with you. It's not personal, it's just easier. Katie always made things harder. Her and that husband of hers, always trying to act like they're better than us. She left our circle a long time ago." Then Dad chimed in. He didn't even try to soften it. "Some kids are just more lovable than others. Your girls, they light up a room. Mason doesn't. He's fine. But he's not them." Lauren told me she felt like the floor dropped out. She said she couldn't even speak for a moment. All she could think was, they don't even hear themselves. She asked if they were okay with never seeing Mason again. If they were fine losing me completely. Dad said, "Katie's always been looking for a reason to cut ties. If this is it, then that's on her. We didn't do anything wrong. She just wants attention." That was the end of it. Lauren left without another word. She got in her car and sat in the driveway for 10 minutes before she could even start it. Now she stood in my kitchen telling me all this, and I could see it, not just the anger but the shame. The shame of realizing she'd grown up being favored, protected, praised, while I had been picked apart in the background. She said something then that caught me off guard. "I think I wanted them to love Mason so bad because deep down, I knew they never really loved you the way they should have. And I was scared they'd do it again, that I'd stand by and let it happen to your kid too. I won't. I won't do that." Then she sat down and asked me the hardest question of all. "Do you still want them in your life even after knowing this?" And I didn't have to think about it. Not anymore. I said no. That night she brought the girls over. They didn't talk about the grandparents. They didn't ask where they were. They just hugged Mason, handed him a new drawing they'd made, and pulled him into a game they made up on the spot. Something with dino aliens and invisible shields. I watched them through the screen door, running barefoot on the grass, chasing each other around the backyard like there was no past. Just now. Later, when we tucked Mason into bed, he asked, "Is Grandma still mad at me?" I knelt down next to him and said the truth. "She's not mad. She just doesn't know how to be a good grandma. But that's not your fault, and it never will be." He nodded slowly. Then he looked right at me and said, "Don't be sad, Mom. I'm upset too. But we're better off without them, right?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, buddy. We are." And that night I believed it with my whole heart. After everything, I kept waiting for the guilt to hit me. That deep, low ache I used to get every time I set a boundary with my parents. But it never came. Not after what they said to Lauren. Not after the years of silence in Mason's direction, broken only by guilt-wrapped toys and half-hearted excuses. Not after the truth was finally said out loud. Instead, what came was quiet. And then slowly joy. The silence from them was total. No follow-up to the dinosaur toy. No texts. No, "Let's talk this out," or "You're still our daughter." It was like we were deleted from their lives the moment we stopped being useful. And that told me everything I still needed to know. At first I thought Mason might keep asking. He didn't. A few times he'd pause by the window like he was thinking about something, but he never said their names. Never asked when they were coming by. He stopped checking the mailbox for cards. That might have been the most heartbreaking part, how quickly he stopped expecting anything from them at all. But something else started happening too. He got lighter. Like some invisible weight had been taken off his little shoulders. He laughed more. Started inviting Ellie and Sadie over all the time. Told his teachers at school that he was working on a family comic book with his cousins. He even drew a new cover for it, The Brave Ones. It had him, the girls, my husband, and Lauren on the front. I wasn't in it, until I flipped the page and saw I was drawn as the person holding the whole world behind them. That drawing is still on our fridge. Lauren invited us over more after everything happened. Not just for dinners, for no reason at all. She'd swing by with muffins. Her husband fixed a squeaky door for us without asking. They invited Mason to the movies with their girls one weekend, just the three of them. When he came back, he said it was the best day of his life. We didn't talk about my parents much after that. It just became something unspoken, like a chapter we'd finally turned the page on. And with each week, the pressure that used to sit heavy in my chest got lighter. But there was one more moment I need to tell you about. About 2 weeks after Lauren had that final talk with them, I was in the grocery store picking up snacks for the kids. I turned a corner and nearly ran into Mom. She froze. So did I. She had a cart full of things. Frozen pies, a bouquet of flowers, and a bottle of wine she used to only buy on birthdays. I looked down. There was a dinosaur-themed party napkin pack near the top. For a second I wondered if she was going to say something. Maybe even apologize. She didn't. She looked me up and down, gave a tight smile, that same tight smile I grew up seeing when I said something she didn't like, and turned her cart around. She left her wine and flowers and napkins at the register and walked out. I didn't follow. I didn't call after her. I stood there watching the automatic doors close behind her and felt absolutely nothing. I finished my shopping. When I got home, Mason was on the floor building a fort with Ellie and Sadie. My husband was trying to read a newspaper behind a stack of couch cushions, pretending not to be part of the chaos. Lauren was on the kitchen floor helping tape up a cardboard command center. The whole house smelled like popcorn and crayons. I just stood there for a moment taking it all in. It was messy, loud, lopsided. Boo. That's when it hit me. This is the family we chose. Not the one we were handed, but the one we built. The one that showed up when it mattered. That night, after everyone left and Mason was asleep, I sat on the porch with my husband. The stars were out, the air was cool. I told him about seeing Mom. He didn't react much. Just reached over and held my hand. After a while he said, "Sometimes losing the people who hurt you is the kindest thing the universe can do." And I realized he was right. We don't need to keep every door open. Not all doors lead somewhere worth going back to. Some of them, once closed, give you the space to build something better. And we did. We built a home where Mason is the center, not an afterthought. Where love isn't measured in how easy you are to like, but how deeply you're seen. Where no child has to wonder if they're lovable. And the truth? We're not missing anything. Not anymore.